So something interesting, I've been also studying Carl Jung lately. There are some studies that I always thought were just new age concepts like created by hot white girls in yoga pants and crystals, but actually Carl Jung believed in a lot of these things. So one thing I've been reading about is synchronicities. Carl Jung actually did a lot of work writing about synchronicities. My question for you, have you personally ever experienced synchronicities in your life, and how do you interpret them? Like, what do they mean to you personally?
Yeah, that's another good question. I have experienced many synchronicities. Yeah, and every time it makes me pause, and it's like, what is going on right now? This
Yeah.
is very strange. Um, Synchronicity is an interesting topic because I mean, the kind of the eternal question about synchronicity is, what is the difference between just a random coincidence and a synchronicity, which is somehow something different, um, and meaningful. Yet it's a meaningful coincidence. And in my understanding of what Jung was trying to capture with the idea of synchronicity is that in kind of in the ordinary physical realm of atoms and molecules and physical objects, there's what he referred to as like causal mechanisms of things happening. So you push the ball down the hill and it rolls down the hill. It's a cause and effect reality that you can watch what happens in the physical reality, and things will happen as a result of other things happening causally. There's a clear cause. Um, and there's connections that you can see when you start to understand what things cause different things. Um, and but what he was pointing to with synchronicity was an acausal connecting principle. And what that means is essentially finding connections between things that don't have a clear causal mechanism. And I think one of the examples that he used is he was in a session with one of his clients, and his client was describing, I think, maybe a dream with that involved this golden scarab beetle or something, that tends to have a lot of symbolic attributes. And just then, as she shared that, the exact beetle kind of flies on the window and lands on the window. Um, there's not really a causal mechanism that anybody can point to that would clearly connect. Okay, this woman is having this dream and describing this dream, and now this thing is right here in the physical room. There's no clear connecting principle there. But it's bizarre nonetheless that is such a coincidence that, of all the dreams that this woman could have had and of all the beetles that there exist, and now there's an intersection of those two things right here in this moment. Those are the kinds of things that Jung drew a box around and said, maybe we'll call this synchronicity. And the key thing with synchronicity is that it's essentially it's a way for the quality of meaning to be included in, I guess, the whole of reality. Because as humans, we have the capacity we can observe causal events, like all of the causal mechanisms that I referenced earlier. Humans are observers to those things. But we're not just mere observers. We're not just a blank camera lens observing all of these causal things. There's something in us that is affected by the things that happen, and we ourselves are part of the whole thing. And so this quality of meaning that comes from being human. It's almost as if meaning itself is a part of the fabric of reality, and it's introduced through the human experience. Like, being human is how meaning manifests itself in the fabric of reality, along with space and time, which is itself best described as a fabric, the fabric of space time and the physical world. So I think Jung was trying to piece together, almost like trying to fit meaning, the experience of human meaning, like a puzzle piece, into the rest of the puzzle that also includes time and space and matter and light. There's other aspects of reality like consciousness and meaning that have to fit together somehow. And so I think what he was trying to do, synchronicity is the theory that links those two things together.
Yeah, no, it's incredible. I've also experienced synchronicities in my life, and one came to mind when you talked about that dream um, with the beetle. I remember one time, this was a while ago, yeah, but I had this like very vivid dream um, about a huge like mansion full of turtles, like living turtles just crawling around this huge mansion. The very next day, my stepmother, she was like, "Hey, there's a estate sale, like when someone passes away and everything in their house is for sale." She's like, "There's an estate sale right down the road. Do you want to go check it out?" And I was like, sure, like why not? Maybe we could buy something, furniture or something. I went there and this house was full of not living turtles, but that would be crazy. But it was full of these little crystal turtles everywhere. And that just like it blew my mind. And I had that dream the day before. And like for me, it's like all that does for me is just open up my mind to the possibility that like, whoa, something else exists beyond me. But I never knew how to really interpret that. Like, I'm like, it didn't really tell me what turtles mean to me. It didn't really tell me, is something trying to communicate with me? I never really knew what it meant. All I got from it was, okay, something bigger is going on. I don't know what it is, but it's there. That's really all it is.
That's incredible. That's what an uncanny combination of events. And I think what you just said, I think that's a mistake that a lot of people fall into. They try to, like, they experience something like you experienced, and then they're affected and impacted by the randomness of like, and just how bizarre of a connection that is. And they try to, they try to make it something that it isn't necessarily, in the sense that like, oh my gosh, like they get lost searching for what the meaning of it is, for what it is. Like, why did I have this dream? What could the connection with the turtles be? Like, what are turtles? And it's a natural response. But I think the thing in my personal experience, I mean, what that tells me, and you even said it, is that it's like, okay, there's something bigger happening going on here. We don't really know what it is. But there's a different aspect to the way that we think reality works that allows for these sorts of things to happen. And what I've learned in my own experience is that individual synchronicities don't necessarily have to mean anything in particular. Other than it's just kind of a reminder. It's like, hey, what you think is reality is only a partial understanding of reality. And at the same time, I have noticed, as I have personally become more aligned with who I am and what I'm doing, and as my life has begun to coalesce in a more kind of resonant and harmonious way with who I am, what I want to do, what I want to contribute, then the amount of times that I've experienced synchronicity has drastically increased. And so, again, this is my personal experience. I don't know if there's anything to this, but one thing that might be a thing is that the frequency of synchronicity in one's life is kind of a barometer or a measure in terms of how closely they're following their path
Right.
of who they are. If you're living a life that there's no meaning, there's nothing happening. Um, and this is in a lot of ways how depression is described.
Yeah.
Nothing is meaningful. There's nothing exciting. There's nothing juicy about life whatsoever. The synchronicity barometer is at a full zero, and you're completely disconnected. But as you get closer to your true path, the synchronicities start to increase, and that's an indicator that this is I'm going in the right direction. I'm doing the right things.
I've also felt that same interpretation for myself as well, because I've noticed the same thing. Like if I'm following my intuition more, I've noticed the synchronicities do happen more. Again, I never was sure how to interpret that, but I thought the same thing as well, is that maybe this is, you know, something trying to communicate with me that I'm following my divine purpose. I know in Hinduism, like I was interested in Hinduism at one point. I never got like too deep into it, but I did read a bit about it. And I know that's one of the beliefs in their religion, is that everybody has their one path, divine purpose, and the mission is to try to find it. So I sometimes wonder if those synchronicities are a sign that you're getting closer to that, you know? So
I think so. There's something there. There's something there.
yeah.
You know?
I've even thought like maybe there's a, and this is more the cynical in me, but there had also been times where I thought maybe there's even a scientific explanation for example, that turtle dream I've had. Like, again, like I don't know too much about physics and whatnot, but I've heard some theories that the way we perceive time is not what it actually is. Like time is on a continuum, like a stagnant thing instead of like future and past. So I even thought like maybe my turtle dream was like a memory backwards, if that makes sense. Like if time is one continuum, like maybe you can things that are premonitions are actually reverse memories. I don't know if that makes any sense, but that's something I've thought of as well.
Yeah, that's I mean, in these realms, like what we're talking about, those sorts of things are, they sound completely bizarre to like an ordinary person in today's day and age. But the reality is that don't really have any idea of how space and time intersect with human consciousness and our experience of it. Because during the psychedelic experience is often a domain where those sorts of things cease to exist altogether. You have people who come back and they report like lived the entire length of the universe in their 1 hour experience under DMT or whatever substance that they're using. DMT doesn't last for an hour, but okay, 15 minutes, same thing.
Right, yeah.
I had a friend in college who made his own DMT and he smoked it. And he told me that he went back to the beginning of the Big Bang and lived the entire history of the universe in 10 minutes of quote unquote Earth time, as he described it.
Wow.
What does that mean? Well,